Batu, Barada, Nikto. You must remember those words.
Gordon's alive.
You know what the Turing test is?
I know Kung Fu.
Dead or alive, you are coming with me.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Stories Out of Time and Space bonus. This one's a little late. We've come into this one special. We found this. We've done it. We're going back and we're going to be doing the George Lucas California University student film that he did, Electronic Labyrinth, THX1138 4EB. I'm kind of glad they shortened it down to just THX1138. But this was a short film that he made that runs about 15 minutes. And he made when it was like one of his first things. Obviously, he grew out to become THX. So, Julian, thoughts then? What are your initial thoughts then around?
You asking my thoughts and prayers?
Yes,
because I don't have a lot of thoughts. I have a lot of prayers. Yeah, I mean, this is very much a student film, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, this is not very good. I can't imagine having watched this and thought I need to make a full-length movie out of this, because really all it is footage of a guy running in various environments, which is fine, along with screens and voiceovers of the control room saying, like, we've got to get him, along with various other bureaucratic pieces of information for 15 minutes. Am I wrong?
No. It was interesting because I think the same. I watched this. And I actually thought like, I thought like, have I missed something in watching this? It's on YouTube, by the way. It's readily available on YouTube. Just go find it. But yeah, no, it was interesting because it is. It's shot. It's not shot third person. So a lot of it is shot security camera footage, and then sort of like flicking back to like a control room, with a constant soundtrack of chatter, and the chatter is nonsense, but you get glimpses or you get like snippets of what's going on. This THX1138 4EB that they're trying to track down, and so it's basically the third act of the film, isn't it? Like, this guy's on the run, and then it's just like a shot of a button being pressed or a guy looking into something, or yeah, like
I'm just mad there weren't any monkeys.
Yeah. Well, there's a special edition version of this that's actually 3.5 hours long. Yeah, I don't know. It's as a student film, it's like, what was the assignment? Is what I'd be curious. Like, because it's clearly not plot. It's about like, let's visualize something. It's a visual medium, so fine. It feels very 60s sci-fi. I mean, this is 67. This was made, so it does feel like it feels influenced by the era.
Yeah, for sure.
But also that sort of like it has that feel of that we've talked about in like Outland, and even Alien has that like industrial future. It's it's very sort of analog in lots of ways. But yeah, I don't know. I'm curious as to what the journey was from this to having a job in any way, shape, or form in the film industry. To be honest, I wouldn't mind reading George Lucas's biography. I haven't seen this, to be honest.
Well, I mean, I have some thoughts about that. I don't know what else I have to say about the film and about how it was elaborated upon into a feature length. I mean, I would say it conveys a certain feel. I think what it's trying to convey is that sort of bureaucratic, feeling, and also underground corridors, which you find out at the end are all underground because he emerges just
into
like
the
the
light.
the actual film, and that's not bad. the bureaucratic kind of like nobody really cares aspect might be conveyed better by this than the full length movie.
Mm.
Um, and I think that sort of endless talking, endless chatter, endless bureaucratic language, kind of stuff, I do like about this. Um, but it seems like in the actual film, it does some things that I like with the religious aspect, but mostly it just kind of fills out a society. Um, and, like the ending of this, I think, is quite good with the voiceover saying, like, THX 1138 has been lost and has his partner report to get assigned a new partner, and
Yeah.
this sense of like very brave new world, like being disconnected from your emotions, like your choice of a spouse is made by the government, and it's you just replace them if they run away or die. I think that is well done here, and I think it's better done here than in the actual film.
Yeah, no, yeah. There's definitely sort of an emotionlessness to everything, which is conveyed. Like you say, it's conveyed better in this than in the film. I mean, but yeah, it's. I like the use of the sort of CCTV of sort of like security camera footage works kind of well. It feels mundane, but it's a student film. It just feels very sort of like brief. Um, and what I found interesting though is
Oy vey, we thought the regular movie felt like a student film.
yes, that's true. I mean, yeah, this is a stripped down version. What I find interesting though is under the version of this I watched on YouTube were an awful lot of isn't George Lucas a genius? Here is that germ of an idea, and I'm like, yeah, there's a germ of an idea here that he sort of slightly grows into a film in THX. But like, yeah, there's not sort of like it's not like seeing something and going, oh, there's a genius at work here. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't feel like unearthing a treasure or sort of I don't know if these things exist, but you see like a short film made by a director and you go, oh, this I expect big things from this person. Like this isn't some earth shattering
No,
experience just seeing this.
no. At the same time, you're perfectly right. And those, obviously, like the cult of George Lucas. Neither one of us are card carrying members,
No.
but um, I did find myself sort of wondering, where did this George Lucas go? Because if you had to think about who is this man who made this, what will his future be? He's a lot closer to David Lynch than he is to the
Well,
George
yeah.
Lucas we know of Jar Jar Binks. Um, and what Lucas has become famous for, this sort of even Indiana Jones Chronicles, like a lot of like hokey stuff, right? A lot of bad taste, but very mainstream taste. Um, and sure, these ideas here and there, but really he's come to define the mainstream and has moved more and more mainstream.
Mm.
I think even during the original Star Wars trilogy, um, you see an evolution toward like, oh no, we're obviously not going to do that because we have to sell action figures.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And so, obviously the George Lucas you and I grew up with was like the action figure marketer.
Yeah.
This guy is a different guy. I mean, this guy is a guy who's destined to do some weird movies, which we probably won't like, but are some weird sci-fi movies.
Well, saying that, the one film sprung to my mind whilst watching this, and it wasn't THX. But another film that we have discussed sprang to mind, and that was Alphaville.
Oh, really? Yeah. Good point.
Like
Sure, that was
this
this
is
season too.
yeah, and this is like 2 years later. So that was Alphaville 65. This is 67. Like
Mm.
I was watching this and thinking like, oh, this guy is trying to Americanize like French New Wave. Like there's something there in this. You know,
Well, it's the outsider on the run,
yeah,
right? I mean, that's classic French New Wave, right? Outsider character who doesn't fit into society, right? he's taking this sort of I think that's a brilliant observation. He's taking these quintessentially French New Wave kind of ideas and
Yeah.
putting them into a Brave New World kind of context.
Yeah, it felt like a mash of that, and that's what you're saying. Like, so again, I'm like, I would be interested to see where this George Lucas goes,
Yeah.
to make something. But like you say, what I find in my head, when I thought that, because I did think like, well, this is also the George Lucas that made the Star Wars trilogy, that wrote Indiana Jones, that went on to write a lot of mainstream fun adventure films. You know, not always great, but has done this. And what I thought when watching this, and I made that connection with Alphaville, I was like, this then feels like an assignment where it was like, maybe not new wave, but like, you know, I want to produce a short film that is minimalist, but tell a story through a medium of whatever. And they've created this. And so he's probably got a lot of good feedback for this from the university or in his class and gone, there's a way into this Hollywood with this. This is my foot in the door. I'm going to make the full film kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, and I will say this: like, you could imagine if that assignment is tell a story without dialogue.
Yeah.
Without traditional dialogue. I mean, there's a lot of words, but there's no dialogue. There's no none of the characters have speaking lines. I mean, there is something that's very ambitious here. And it does tell a story. I don't think it's a very effective or gripping story, but I mean, it does fulfill that assignment very well.
Yeah.
You know, where'd this guy go? Like, I kind of like this. Like, I don't like this movie, you know, but I think it's like a 5, you know, or 4. But I think he shows promise. Like, he's got instincts and desires here that are interesting.
Yeah. Well, there are a couple of shots. There are a couple of shots that I actually really like. You go, oh, that's an interesting shot. Some of it felt very 60s. That there's sort of like, you know, lights being blurred and then coming into focus. So I've sort of like, oh, I've seen that plenty of times, but I kind of like it. There's bits and pieces where I was like, oh, there's something cool here. But overall, like you say, it feels very, I don't say immature, but like it feels rough in the best possible way. But yeah,
it's a student film. I mean, you know, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe, you know, maybe there's another timeline somewhere where like, I really love George Lucas. Yeah, he was like, you know, he gave up halfway through Star Wars and like started, you know, just decided like, I'm just going to make indie stuff. There's no Skywalker Ranch. There's no, you know, there's no Star Wars franchise. We're still in like the auteur years of Hollywood, you know. And Lucas is out there just making these, you know, $2 million movies, you know, now and then.
That's a really good point, actually. Because I mean, that's it, isn't it? If he went a different way, like cinema goes a very different way throughout the sort of like the 80s and stuff. Tarantino would be sort of like talking about George Lucas continually instead of whoever else. Yeah, it'd be very different.
Like Scorsese would be like the mainstream guy, you know. You know,
Scorsese's Star Wars.
Well, I mean, you know, it would be like, because, you know, I mean, we had some, but you know, the whole auteur era was still going on. You know, Star Wars really is the nail in its coffin. It's not that there aren't. I mean, that probably would have come to end eventually. But the idea of sort of like the franchise, you know, all of these things, just Lucas is so important in them. What if we never got them? And the closest thing we have to a franchise is like The Departed 2, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. It's because there's those connections, obviously, you know, beyond Lucas, there's obviously Spielberg and stuff, but even those two are tied together in a number of ways. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I would be interested to see, like, if there's, you know, I mean, you know, he's obviously stepped back. He's incredibly wealthy now. He can do whatever the hell he wants. But I'd be fascinated, sort of like, you know, if he comes out of retirement, he's like, oh, I've got one more film in me. I want to write and direct one more film, and everyone's expecting some sort of, you know, something similar to Star Wars or something in the Star Wars universe. And all of a sudden, he comes out with this like, really auteur avant-garde art film about, it's set science fiction art film. I'd
I'd
kind of
love to
watch that.
see it.
Yeah.
And you know who's instructive in this regard is Francis Ford Coppola.
Mm.
Who I mean, people love the Godfather films, especially the first two. They're certainly competently directed. It does not impress you when you hear his interviews why he made most of those choices,
Yeah. Yeah.
to say the least. But obviously he goes on to, I mean, he made like The Conversation, movies that I really like.
Mm.
But he went on to sort of like want to have a mainstream sensibility and want to get work, right? Because he
Hmm.
been bankrupt so many times. But then in his old age, he's kind of made these like auteur, fascinating, weird little
Yeah.
movies that he can raise, which I think is brilliant. And I don't know how much I like them, but I think it's sort of like exactly what you should do. That's what I want Lucas to do. It's just
Yeah.
like spend $5 million, just make these weird little things that speak to this guy and what this guy wanted and imagined his life was going to be before becoming the Star Wars franchise Indiana Jones guy.
That'd be fascinating. I think there is something to that, isn't there? Because you do get. I'm just looking at Coppola now, because he is one of those odd ones, and you're sort of seeing it with a few. I mean, you say he did, the Godfather films, which is probably most best known for. He then did like Bram Stoker's Dracula. Which
Yeah,
I love that film, by the way.
yeah, it's
visually,
it's visually great.
yeah,
And he did like The Firm, or one of those
the,
silly sort of
yeah, the Rainmaker.
The Rainmaker. Yeah.
Yeah, DeVito and John Voight's not in it, but he also made Jack with Robin Williams, which is a bit of a car wreck in all honesty. So
Uh-huh. Well, that's what I mean by like he like tried his best to sell out and kind of,
yeah,
he didn't have a Star Wars, right? So, but he did like, like Youth Without Youth, and was it like, what's that guy's name? Tetsuo, or
mm,
uh those more recent ones. And they're really interesting, they're really interesting movies. Um and
yeah. I
I,
mean,
I think like there's a version of Lucas. There's like some little part of his brain that's like, I could have been the American Godard, and I want to like, we got to like get a microchip in his brain and trigger that part of his brain in his old age, and have him say, you know what, I got all the money in the world, you know, Disney's going to do its Star Wars thing. I need to, you know, make weird movies.
I kind of like that about some directors, though. I think you're right. I think I'm enjoying that like there are certain directors that just sort of hold on to a sensibility, or they'll do certain things, but then they're like, no, I'm going to go off and do my own thing, or I'm going to do this and that. Like Spielberg, you
Hmm.
can see that in his career he's done, he's had flops, but he's done some massive hits, and then he's like, yeah, but then I'm going to go off and do Munich, and I want to do
Mm-hmm.
this sort of thriller, and then I'm going to go do this, and then I'm going to do that. Like he's got the swing to be able to do whatever he wants, really. And then you have like
Well, it's like
David Cronenberg.
Jurassic Park, Schindler's List in the same year.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you get like David Cronenberg. It's like, no, I'm going to keep doing what I want to do, and
Or
I
David
look,
Lynch, I
yeah,
mean,
David, exactly like
yeah.
David. Even Sam Raimi is one where
Mm,
like he'll go to the mainstream, but you can go, oh no, this is a Sam Raimi film.
mm.
Like it's got that feel to it. Um, and so I respect that. And I feel like George Lucas, although he's held up as this sort of bastion because of Star Wars, like he hasn't really done a great deal beyond that. I mean, he did THX, and then he did the car racing movie from the 50s, which I forget
Uh,
now what it's called.
American Graffiti.
American Graffiti, yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. And then
Then he's the Star Wars guy.
and then Star Wars, that's it, yeah.
Yeah.
And he's vaguely involved with Howard the Duck, and then he becomes
Right.
like a producer and that sort of thing, and that's
He
it.
did produce some those some other movies, and did sort of have a hand in. But yeah, none of them are real big success, and they're all sort of like childish,
Mm,
right? I mean, he just becomes the guy who's got this adventure, childish kind of vision, and some of it hits and some of it doesn't. I think what I'm trying to say is let Lucas be Lucas.
yeah.
You know, and that's true. We've talked about this like on 20th Century Geek with Burton, and how like I love Tim Burton. I acknowledge he's made some movies that aren't as great. I think he can do like Big Eyes, a kind of like offbeat kind of mainstream movie very well. He's an incredibly competent director, but I mostly want him to just make like borderline non-narrative weird stuff.
Yeah.
And I want Lucas to make borderline non-narrative weird stuff. Like we've got enough people who can shoot these mainstream movies now. I don't need that to be Luke. And Lucas still has creative juice in him. I mean, look, we badmouth him to some degree, but I mean, he invented our childhoods.
Yeah, no, he is important, but like you say, I just think I almost want to go. Look, here's not even a big amount. Like, here's 60 million. Go and make whatever the hell you want. I want to see what comes out of that. Right? Yeah, I want to see Amazon or Netflix or one of those sort of one of those streaming services just do it. It'd be quite interesting to see what comes out with it. Maybe a complete car wreck. I don't know, but
it could be. But it would be like a fascinating car wreck.
Yeah.
Like I want to see the George Lucas like not autobio movie. That's like the guy who built Skyrocket Ranch, but it's called something else. And it's from like the franchise that like he hates, and nobody knows that he hates it. What does he have to lose now? Like, yeah,
I'm fascinated. Yeah, it is. I mean, there's something there in this early film, but I don't think it's. I don't know. It's fully explored. Yeah, there's not much more to talk about this film. I think it's on
mostly
YouTube.
Talked about other things than the film anyway.
Exactly, yeah. It's on YouTube. Go check it out. We can go and do that. But any of the final thoughts then around THX1138 4EB?
No. I don't think so. I'm glad they shortened it. There's something here. This is not I think I gave it a 4. Yeah,
it's not. It's an interesting piece of history, but not. It's homework, if anything else. Like, it's not something you have to go and watch. Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, that was another little extra nugget of bonus content for you. We've now talked about it, and as it's readily available to go see. So let us know what you think. Have we been bad-mouthing George Lucas too much? Have we sort of really gone over the top? And do you want to defend him, or do you agree with us that this is actually sort of there's a nugget of something in there that he should be chasing down? So, but for now, anyway, I hope you're enjoying this extra content. We really appreciate all the support. But next, we shall speak to you on the next episode.